Hi everyone, welcome to our live Q&A with Nicole Scurr. Please bear with us because we are relying on technology from Melbourne all the way to Brisbane, and we've been having a little bit of tech difficulties. But we are going to do our best. I'm really excited to introduce Nicole. Nicole is probably one of, all my educators are really, really passionate about parents, but Nicole has a beautiful parenting space to nurture local parents, and he's recently launched some great online support for new parents. It's a really difficult time for new parents at the moment, not having access to their normal services. And alongside delivering baby and child first aid education, Nicole is a registered nurse, maternal child health lactation consultant, and also supporting parents through understanding infant behaviour and cues, and obviously working out any difficulties that you might be having with sleep. And the most beautiful part about Nicole, I'll finish your intro soon, is that Nicole really takes an approach that's very natural and organic, and it's very considerate of different cultures and respectful of different parenting opinions. And I think that is something that's really valued, to come from a place where you're informed and research-based, but still have that kindness and compassion to connect with parents. And I definitely see that in Nicole. So I'm really grateful to have Nicole here. So welcome, Nicole, to our live Q&A.
Thanks, Natalie. I really appreciate that. And certainly it's something that is very, very important to me, and that is connecting with people that I work with. And certainly parts of that comes that I'm also a mother of 3 myself. So I feel like even though I've got all of these skills and education, etc., a lot of my learning has come from being a mother myself. So that's how I think I connect with parents the most. Yeah. But
yeah,
no,
it does.
I love the journey. Yeah.
So we're going to go through, we had a series of questions being sent in to you, Nicole, and I feel like we could be here for hours on end. But we'll be really mindful that people watching this live are at home, and we'll try and get through the questions. But I do encourage you, if we have to cut it short for any reason, we will put Nicole's comment details in the comments, and you can get in contact directly with Nicole. The first question we had, Nicole, was what should I do in the early days with a new baby? It seems like a really broad question. I still remember taking my babies home that are 9 and 11. I was really fortunate because I was super young, so I didn't plan anything. I was just like, we'll wing it. But I must admit, if I was to have a baby now, I'd have so many more questions and so many more hesitations. So what do you suggest? What am I doing in the first few days of bringing my baby home?
Yeah, for sure, Natalie. It is a really hard thing, and I think one of the biggest things I always like to talk about is expectations, and that's expectations of ourselves, what we think society wants us to do, what our partners want us to do, what our friends are doing. And I guess I always like to bring a little bit of my research on cultures here, and really valuing becoming new parents, becoming a new mum, and giving yourself the opportunity to bond and attach with your baby. And I really feel that that should be the most important thing that you're doing in the first really 6 weeks of your baby's life. And I think, babies will pretty much, all they'll do is sleep and eat in the first 6 to 8 weeks. And I think a lot of parents are really shocked by that. I think that they're not aware of newborn behaviours. They've come from a professional background potentially, or a very spontaneous lifestyle, to then being stuck at home. And it can be really, really hard for parents to adapt to that. But I would suggest in those first few weeks, use it to nurture yourself, nurture your baby, nurture your relationship, and just pretty much stay at home and start to get to learn this little person.
So on that, I love the reference to culture. And please, if you're watching this live and you know anyone that's about to have a baby, please tag them in the comments below. Being live can be really quite nerve-wracking, can't it, Nicole? So the more likes we get, we can see. So be sure to make any comments. But on that, Nicole, what if I take my baby home and I'm not feeling a connection yet? Could we possibly speak about that? Because I think that's more common than we actually speak about.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly in the current climate, when we are sort of in periods of quarantine, lockdown, we feel like we're extremely isolated. I think for a lot of parents, they sort of think that your baby will come out and you're going to fall in love with it in the first minutes. And some mums do say that they absolutely do that. But a lot of mums also don't. And that's a really normal reaction as well. And it's really normal at about day 3 to have some postnatal blues with hormonal changes, your milk coming in. So it's absolutely normal to not feel okay in those first few days, and that's a really normal reaction. I always say to reach out to potentially people that you already know have a child, reach out to friends and family. But there are also really great organisations like the Centre of Perinatal Excellence, which is also called COPE. There's Panda, which is another organisation as well that can help if you're feeling a little bit low. But just don't be afraid to put your hand up and ask for help. Even send me an email. I'm sort of happy to direct you in any way that I can and offer you some support.
Wonderful. And I've just put in a new question, just to throw a whammy. What can dads do in the first few weeks? I do know that from, getting feedback from dads, it's a really hard time because you want to make that connection and bond as well. But there is a heavy reliance on that mother providing that care. Do you have anything the dad could do to help create that bond in those early few days or weeks?
Absolutely. And it's a massive transition for dads as well, because essentially they've just lost their partner that, they were such a tight-knit group, I guess, and now they've got this little one as well. And often the baby and the mother, all they do is spend all this.
We've just had a slight freeze. Sorry, Nicole. We're just having some technical. We're just having some technical difficulties. So I'll get you to answer that again, but if you can just go a bit slower so the internet can catch up. I find when we're talking too fast with this internet connection, it cuts out. So what were you suggesting for dads to do in the first few days or weeks?
Sure. Thanks, Nat. I guess just look at other ways that you can bond with the baby that are different to what the mother and the child's needs are. So I always suggest to dads, use the opportunity to give the baby a bath. Use an opportunity to have some skin-to-skin time. Get a lovely baby carrier and put them on your skin. Babies will actually sometimes settle much faster with a dad because they can't smell their mother's milk. And that's a really nice way for a dad to feel as though he's accomplished something, that he's actually got the baby to go to sleep. I guess other ways to bond, is having that playtime with them, etc. Getting up and bringing the baby to mum when she needs to feed. Also just taking the baby for a walk in the pram. There's so many ways that you can bond and have that really great attachment with the baby as well, other than what obviously the mother does with breastfeeding or feeding.
So on playtime, I was never a huge player until they're generally about 6 months to a year. What does playtime look like in the first few months? Because I think our expectations are really high of a young baby, where playtime can be purely just doing this with your hands. What are the expectations of playtime in the first few months?
Yeah, I guess obviously, and we all know that babies are developing so quickly. The most massive neural development happens in the first 12 months of life. I guess play can look very different. You don't need to go out and buy the latest bright coloured toys, all those sorts of things. Babies actually love facial expressions and watching you smile at them or peekaboo, and yes, using your hands, letting them grasp your finger, letting them grasp other objects, making eye contact with them, and which I actually think is such an important thing, because that element of play, rather than a lot of parents, could be looking at phones or devices, but it's so important for that baby attachment to make eye contact, smile, laugh, make gurgling noises. sing to them. If you remember lullabies from when you were younger, or start researching some great lullabies. I still sing Mockingbird to my kids, and my mum sang that to me when I was a baby. So,
Yes.
it's a wonderful way. So singing, reading, babies are never too young to obviously they can't read the words, but they're looking at colours and you're talking to them. But yeah, like you said, you don't need all these whiz-bang toys at all. No.
Yeah. And I think that's really important information, because sometimes we get wrapped into all these glitz and glamour. I still sing to my kids. I think it was Natural Nicole. I don't know whether I've referenced that right, Love. I still sing that song to girls. Talking about devices, I certainly am a parent who is on my device way too much. Mine are 9 and 11 now. And you do often see posts where someone's like, I can't believe that mum at the park on her phone. I think for me, keeping that digestible. So someone said to me the most important part of the day for older children, just using as a reference, is the first 3 minutes when they wake up and the last 3 minutes when they go to bed. It's only 6 minutes of my day. And reading that, I've become really conscious that when they do wake up, because I wake up before them, I'm often in my bed on my phone. So trying to put that away before they see me in the morning or in the evenings. But I just wanted to briefly mention that, because I think we have to understand there will be time on your phone, because there's some great social connect on your phone, but just being really disciplined on when that's kind of occurring, just being conscious of when it occurs.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so our next question was in regards to mothers groups. Where should I get the support? And I'd love to really talk about, we know that mothers groups are available online and they're really beneficial, but maybe we just really be open about some of the stuff that might occur online that actually makes you feel like crap as a parent. What's really supportive, and when's the time to kind of step back and choose a different form of support? So I think sometimes we get really wrapped up into online, but if you're finding that online's a little bit negative, or not potentially going down your pathway of parenting and you're not feeling comfortable, maybe that's time to reach out to an online or call a nurse or call you. So can you talk about the different forms of support and what's really positive about it, and maybe when are the times that we need to divert that to different types of support?
Sure, definitely, Nat. I guess online mothers groups, there are thousands of them, and certainly sometimes the only way you find really good ones are through links through people that are already part of a private group, etc. And they can obviously be wonderful sources of information. I always say to keep in mind that it's one person's opinion a lot of the time, and you need to take all of that information on board about what feels right for you and for your family. Sometimes there's so many different opinions online, and that can be confusing for a new parent. So I always say to err on the side of caution, but you can take in all of that information, that's great, but just really take home what's important to you. And if something doesn't sit right with you, it doesn't mean that it's going to work for you and your family. I think what's really important is that mothers and parents and dads are actually trying to connect with face-to-face mothers groups as much as they can as well. It's so important to have that connection with people. And certainly a lot of mothers do ask me, where do I find these groups? And I guess you kind of have to think outside the square a little bit sometimes. There can be like there's baby rhyme times or reading groups, etc. at libraries. There may be groups of mums that walk in a park, like I know they do the pram walking mums. There is a great, and you might just take some research to do that, even in looking in a local magazine and seeing if there's mothers groups listed. I mean, I know we personally offer a mothers group for mums that are coming into us, so we like to connect them and then offer them an opportunity, a safe space to come and have us facilitate the conversation a little bit, so nobody's ever feeling as though they're being attacked or uncertain, and being there for the answers. So there are certainly lots of areas that you can try and find mothers groups. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had premature babies and I missed out on the whole mothers group bandwagon. And now that my kids are a little bit older, I do sometimes admittedly get a little bit lonely because I never created those connections throughout my child's development. So I don't really have those friends other than school friends to turn around to. I actually grasped really tightly to my grandmother and my mother, the stuff that I learnt from them. But sadly, a lot of people don't have that support. And I have been reading something about like adopted grandmother, that there's some programs where you can adopt your grandmother. Have you heard of that stuff? Because I love that.
I actually have seen that, Nat. I think it was something like Adopt a Granny or something along those lines, and someone that was coming in to support you in the way of what I guess some people might look at as a nanny. And certainly there's a lot of women as well which will have support in the home in the way of like a doula or pay for someone to come in and do the service, like help around the house, etc., like that. But I also love the idea of Adopt a Granny. I'm very fortunate to have my mum about, who is actually a midwife, and I would probably call her every day. I think she spent the second night of my firstborn's life in bed next to me. So I understand the importance of having those family connections as well. And yeah, but what a great idea. Yeah,
I love that idea. And I'm a very psychological obsessed person. I love learning about psychology. And I think also when you're getting that support from your mother or grandparent, is recognizing, if it's something that it's not the same as you, it was always different. If we look at parenting 20 years ahead or 20 years behind us, we have to have that level of respect that it is really, really different. And parents face difficulties these days of having to return back, having extra economical pressure. So there is. I really do encourage anyone watching this. We might not have the answers right now to contact Nicole. It doesn't matter what part of Australia or the world you're in. We will definitely try and help you get more connected in a healthy way. So let's go back onto some health stuff, shall we? This is a question that we get asked a lot, and although this isn't particularly about choking, because we have a choking episode coming up, and we also cover choking in our online sessions. I love this topic because I think sometimes as a parent, we look at these gentle, young, innocent babies, we're slightly dismissive that they still uphold many of our amazing anatomy and physiology traits. And one of those traits is actually being able to protect itself naturally from choking. And I wouldn't mind opening up to other baby reflexes that they might have. One that I always talk about is babies not being able to breathe through their mouth for the first period of their life, that they only try to breathe through their nose. What are some cool reflexes that every parent should know that their baby has for the first few months?
Yeah, certainly. And Nat, I was aware that there was a lot of parents concerned about choking, and particularly if they were sleeping and they vomited, would they choke on this, etc. Babies have lots of really great primitive reflexes, protective reflexes. So like the gag reflex that occurs and, doesn't really diminish until about 6 months of age, where we're starting to introduce solids. And a baby, to hopefully put some mums at ease, that it's a very natural concern to be worried about babies vomiting or spitting up and choking when they're lying on their backs. But babies actually naturally will cough or swallow any vomit or spit up and things like that. So it's a natural reflex that occurs for them. It can not still ease a lot of parents' worries, and I'm sure they'll still check on their little ones, but certainly they do have that natural reflex there. There's also things people are probably very quite aware in that for first 6 to 8 weeks of the startle reflex, where quite often babies will be sort of jerking the startle reflex of noises or even just sudden movements, etc. It's also called the Moro reflex. So the rooting reflex, I guess a lot of new mums would be very aware of this one, and you can reproduce this by sort of rubbing at the side of the mouth. But the rooting reflex is really important because it helps us to identify that baby's needing to feed, etc. So you will see a lot of babies that are doing this sort of movement as they're, and it's called a rooting reflex, so they're looking for breast milk or to be fed. So they also have a suck reflex as well, which is very, very important and can be very, very strong, etc. when the baby's young, and that's very important as well for establishing good breastfeeding, etc. There are other little reflexes that we might assess as child health nurses, etc. Sort of as Babinski reflexes with and stepping reflexes, which are all developmental things. But certainly, even in the element of a baby laying down on their stomach will have that natural reflex, which is where they'll actually turn their head to one side and the opposite limb will go to the other side. So they're all very protective reflexes that are there to help a baby survive, but obviously still needs the adult.
Yeah. I love the routine reflex. Whenever I see a newborn baby, I just have to tease them a little bit. That gives me, and the last reflex I want to discuss with people is we're often really concerned about a child being smothered or not being able to breathe, or in the car seat, for example, when they go down like this. Our babies are born with the natural reflex to move if they feel like they're not getting enough oxygen in the position that they're in. So that I just want to mention that because that's really important. But the second thing to make note is they're generally just not strong enough to move things out of their way. So that reflex is already developing, but they're not likely to grab their arm and move something. And that's why it's so important just to remove all that excess stuff around them and making sure is it a safe space for them until they can get that strength. And we will get into sleep in a moment, but that is another one I think is really important to note, that they are already developed that reflex that I'm not getting enough oxygen, I need to move. But we need to make sure they've got enough room to move, and that if they move, something else isn't going to end up in their face and vice versa. So I just go into the next question here. We've done that one. What are the normal behaviours and cues of a new baby?
Yeah, sure. So this is one of the biggest things that is always asked of child health nurses, I guess, is trying to, I guess, understand or learn a baby's way of communicating. And certainly the biggest way a baby communicates is generally to cry. So generally that will always mean something, but that can be very distressing for parents. The other ones I always like to talk to are how do parents recognise when their babies are tired? Are their babies showing engagement type cues or disengagement type cues where they're wanting to go to sleep? Is my baby hungry? There's so many ways that babies actually do communicate, but unless you're kind of familiar with those and you're looking for them, they're so easy to miss. And then unfortunately what happens, you've got an overtired baby or a baby that's really hungry, a baby that's screaming, and it's very hard to try and get back into that cycle of a nice breastfeed and then getting them off to sleep. So obviously, those early cues of a baby being hungry as they start to wake, they're starting to stir about, the mouth opening, the routine reflex that they will do as well. Sometimes babies will start going like this as well and head bobbing. I think there might have been a technical glitch. I will keep talking just in the hope that Nat joins me back soon again. She's coming back.
I'm back.
She is back. She is back. I was just sort of mid not talking there. So, and obviously, people can become really quite confused as to what sort of tired signs then is my baby going to be showing. And, once a baby's tired, they can start to really cry and fuss. They'll frown, and you'll often see this little sort of furrow of their brow a little bit. Once they're yawning and things like that, or sometimes babies will start to hiccup a lot. They're just signs to show that their body's had too much stimulus. They're really starting to be tired, and it's really, really important to start watching those things. One baby's engaging with you, they will make eye contact with you and smile. But as soon as it can be very subtle. You might sort of notice that all of a sudden they seem to just sort of stare away, or they their colour changes. They can go slightly pale, or really jerky leg movements. It's a real sign of being quite tired. And that's when you really need to address that straight away, because if you're letting them get further and further along that pathway, they become really, really hard to settle. So I guess there's some really basic cues that babies can show for when they're tired as well. Yeah.
So it's a bit of a deep secret of mine that I used to provide sleep support to parents, and it is something I am really passionate about. And interestingly, in the sleep groups that I'm in, I find some of the most where there is a difficulty, it's more a difficulty of getting the baby to do what we want when we want them to do it. It's really quite, and it's because you're trying to find this balance. I don't want to be at home all day, and they're changing their routine all the time. But really, I find the difficulty comes when we're trying to manipulate that baby into our routine. And as much as we like it or not, we've kind of got to go their way, or life can be really, really difficult. Do you have any tips about that? Like, do I try and time a walk in the morning where they sleep in the pram? Like, what can I do to try and implement my life back into getting a good sleep routine?
Yeah, for sure. And this, I'm actually very passionate about this too, Nat. And there are some great organisations that I'm not sure that I can really mention them here, but that do really support that sense of ensuring that you kind of adapt to the baby, kind of adapts to your lifestyle as well, and that you're not looking to get some sort of strict sleep routine. And parents will often forget that a baby sleeping in the carrier for 20 minutes while you duck down to the shops to grab some milk, or having a 20-minute nap in the car, it is all still sleep that they're getting. And I think a lot of parents get quite nervous that their baby's not having big chunks of sleep. And I think remembering that, a baby's sleep cycle could be like around about 30 minutes or even up to 45 minutes for an older baby. And so it doesn't take long for them to go through one sleep cycle. Sometimes they'll consolidate and have two, and then you're lucky you get an hour and a half in a row. But all of that incidental sleep throughout the day, if the baby is on you, or the baby's in a carrier, the baby's in the pram while you go for a walk or drive in the car, that's all still okay. And it's really important that parents don't, I guess, sort of feel guilty that they should be at home and that their baby should be having a strict routine and they should be having 3 hours here, because unfortunately it's not reality for most of us.
Yeah, and I feel like we can go on forever about it, but I'm trying to think back a long time ago when I was trying to put my baby to sleep. It was actually quite embarrassing trying to settle my baby in public because I was scared that I was going to do it wrong. But I think you're right, being quite open that I'm going to go for a walk. Babies love walking. That's still part of that sleep process. Or, or for example, I used to walk my baby in the evenings in the pram and then make dinner while she continued her sleep. Getting used to that. It takes a level of confidence, and I think that's where people really will benefit from getting support from people like you or other organisations that assist them in kind of gaining that confidence. That you can be that crazy lady rocking your baby in the corner of the doctor's surgery if need be. But we've all got, so you learn those little traits along the way, but it's different for everyone. And I think that's really, really important for people to understand. So that's a great tip. We'll get on to the next question. What is normal sleep? So we've briefly touched it. Is there anything additional you'd like to go over what normal sleep looks like?
Yeah, for sure. And once again, Nat, this is a lot about expectations as well. And when I say what is normal sleep, a normal amount of sleep for a newborn might be 18 hours a day. And I know there might be parents that are saying, what, my baby only sleeps 10 hours a day. Yeah. And I mean, that's an average amount. And there might be some babies that sleep a bit more and some that sleep less. But this is in a 24-hour period of time. And what I always find fascinating is that even by about 4 or 5 months of age, a 5 hours sleep in a row is actually considered a sleep through for a baby, if that's how long they sleep overnight. And a lot of parents are very surprised to learn that. So if a baby is sleeping sort of as a newborn 2 to 3 hours and then waking, that's a very, very normal pattern. We need babies waking overnight because they have such small stomachs that they're feeding regularly. It's really quite normal to be feeding overnight 3 to 4 times per night, and waking at those periods of time to have feeds, etc. And certainly there will be a random baby that I don't know how or why, and I'm not sure what magic skill those mums have, that they seem to say 3 weeks of age and my baby was sleeping 12 hours a night. I have to say I very, very rarely see that happen. I think it's amazing if it does, and that's great for them, and there's no judgment offered anywhere in relation to that. But I think it's important to understand generally what's normal is that you can have a range of sort of like 12 to up to 22 hours in some studies that have been done is what is considered normal for your baby. And so I always say watch out for those tired cues. If they're not displaying some tired cues, or they've been fed, or going through that process, I think that you shouldn't feel guilty about how much or how little your baby is sleeping. If it's a problem for you, it's a problem for you. If that makes sense, Nat?
Yeah. I often think when parents say, oh, my baby sleeps for 12 hours a night, I'm like, you must be lying. They're throwing on an extra hour there for sure. So don't ever, oh my God, that's no offense. If your baby sleeps 12 hours, drop in the comments and we'll celebrate with you. But I do like to think sometimes we've got a few porcupines going around because we do measure, and that's again going to take us a very different topic. We do measure the success of our parenting based on what's happening with our child. And again, I think, I really get concerned about that. I love talking about this topic in reference to always trying to make our child happy throughout the development, because if our child's happy, it's a measurement of my success as a parent. And what we find then throughout those early years is that we're not allowing them to experience that range of emotions and capacity. So I'm not going to go into it, but I think it does start really early on that your child's mood is not a reflection of your parenting. I can promise you that. And as they get older and you end up with one rat bag and one not so much of a rat bag, you realize it had nothing to do with it because you parented both of them the same. So, it's good to remove those expectations. I think, that your child is going to be moody and they're going to have grumpy days and they're going to have great days. And, little movements and things happening within a baby are really big deals to them. Even if them trying to make poo and do a poo is a massive thing. Their body's never really done it, So I think sometimes we just assume it's so easy for them, but they have such their own little difficulties. I still remember when I gave labour that the midwife said, you should put your hand up there and feel your baby. And I remember going, what? And I remember that moment so vividly, putting my hand up my vagina and feeling my baby. And I remember saying, darling, I know this is really hard for you. We're going to get through this together. And it was such a moment because I think I forgot that it was hard for her too. I just thought it was hard for me. But the minute I realized that it's really hard, it's not hard for them, but it's something's happening. They're coming out to the world, doing that together. So I think, sometimes we forget how hard it is for our little bubbles as well to adjust to this world. Even having a breeze on your face must be so new as a baby. All right, moving on. And we'll go to the next question. I bring this up because we get it asked a lot in our live Q&A. I want to learn baby CPR. And how can I do this? So we can't cover it today. We do have the online program that you can purchase directly off Nicole. So what we're doing at the moment is we created a great online platform. It is purely for expectant or new parents. And it's very specific because we can't replace in-person first aid education. And I've been trying to do so because credits how valuable it is to sit in the room with an educator and ask questions and gain that feedback in practice. But in saying that, any attempt is better than no attempt at all. And so we have created an online product which will go through the most common things that you might present to ED with. So the really important stuff that you need to know now. And you can purchase that directly off Nicole to show your support during this period. I just want to go through this. I'd love to learn more. Can you tell me about your first aid online course, which I've just done? And the second question is can you share briefly, Nicole, why you love to be a Parentmedic educator?
She's good, isn't she, this Natalie? She didn't tell me this question was going to be asked, but I had a sneaking suspicion because I watched the other mini sessions. I guess for me, my other background is in critical care, so I was in emergency and cardiac nursing, and I love empowering parents with knowledge. And I also feel like when coming across Nat and her organisation, so Parentmedic, being able to teach parents these life-saving skills in a really sort of welcoming and warm environment that I've also created here, and I know all the other educators have as well. It's really, really special. So I actually love being part of a group of educators that are wanting to be evidence-based, being led by Nat, who I know is wanting to always make sure we're presenting the most up-to-date information, etc. But for me, also being able to connect with those parents as well, aside from the teaching of the first aid, it gives me an opportunity to connect and just say, hey, how's everything else going? And that's what I really, really love to do.
Beautiful. So tell us about your gig. We want to know what you're doing. I know you have a beautiful, amazing piece of land. So tell us what you're doing, offline, online. Can I come to you and do a public session if I'm in Brisbane? What else can I come to you? So it's really important for me as the founder of the Parentmedic movement to support all our educators in their adventures. And what is so beautiful about the Parentmedic movement is that we all come from a bit of a range of backgrounds. So as a collective, we share knowledge and make sure we're up to date. So tell us about what you're doing with the parenting phase.
Yeah, sure. So myself and also a colleague of mine, Kate, and also another colleague that I've worked with, Chantel, we are all very, very passionate about empowering new parents. So I guess I came from a background of working for a larger organisation, and I just felt like I wanted the experience to be a little bit more personal, that I didn't have sort of that red tape in place. If I wanted to follow up with a mum, that I could. We wanted to create a really safe and nurturing space.
Lost Nicole slightly.
As well. So we, it just glitched.
We'll regain connection shortly for everyone watching. So how do I contact the Parenting Place?
Yeah, Nat. So obviously, people can just go to, it's theparentingplace.com.au. You can also search, we're on Facebook, The Parenting Place Brisbane. I know there is a Parenting Place, I think, in New Zealand as well, so it can get confusing. But if you search The Parenting Place Brisbane, certainly we are here to support as many mums and connect as many mums and dads together, whether it's helping them with breastfeeding, helping them with the new baby, growth and development, learning first aid, infant massage, a range of different things that we just love helping and nurture parents. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And just if you do want to jump on and have a look at the online baby first aid course, it's $49.95. It includes all the basics that you need to know. It also helps you learn how to access the GP in your home. There's lots of resources, and at $49.95 gives you access for your whole family. We do encourage you sharing it with direct family members so they can learn. So if you've got some family members during this time that have a bit of extra time up their sleeves, it's great to get the grandparents doing it. Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you guys for being so patient with a few difficulties. If you saw me briefly go like this before, my daughter ran behind my computer and requested to play a game on her phone. So I appreciate everyone's understanding. Thank you, Nicole, and thank you for everyone for watching. Please do share with all your parenting contacts and show support for Nicole at the Parenting Place in Brisbane.
Thanks, Nat. Bye, guys.
Bye.